introducción que yo ya lo había subido, el del canola.
Ya estamos en vivo. All right, what's going on, Wild Family? Welcome back to the live stream. For those, if this is the first time watching, this is the Wild Hustle channel where we ride, we hustle, we repeat. I got a special guest today because I am in my vineyard. Everyone went shopping and left me with the little one, and they're not back, and I'm stuck. And he is even though he's not even a year old yet, he's only 10 months, I think, 10, 11 months. His birthday's in September. He is like nonstop. Anyway, I'm going to get through this live stream. I got a couple of things I want to talk about. But I'm going to try to get through this live stream if he lets me. And if he doesn't, then we'll have to cut it short. So two things that I really want to talk about, and that is the future of e-bikes, right? And I want you guys to put in the comments, where do you think we are, or where do you think e-bikes are as an industry? Do you think they're, this is the beginning stages? You think e-bikes have peaked, or do you think we're in the downturn? What's the matter? What's the matter? Okay. Or are we in the golden age of e-bikes, right? And I think I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I think we're in the golden age of e-bikes. And then 1 reason why I think we might be in trouble and the industry itself might be changing. Let me put him down. Let's see if he wants to play over here and doesn't grab my stuff. Okay, go over there. So the first thing, again, guys, let me just reiterate a couple things if this is your first time watching. First off, if you're watching, say hi. Put, say hi in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And then try as we go along, and let me see if I can bring up some of these comments. As we go along, I will try to answer any question that might be that you might have as we go along. And in this segment, I really would like some participation, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is from my personal experience, right? And some of you guys work in different markets. You have experience with different bikes than I do. And then somebody squeeze gains. Where's the laws for e-bikes? What's the laws for e-bikes? If I read that right. Mitchell, hello from Arkin. I don't have. Well, let me put my glasses if I can see some of these questions. Yeah, so that's that's the caveat, right? In terms of the future of e-bikes is regulation, right? Here in Florida, there was this bill that a lot of people really misunderstood the bill. And I personally liked the bill. Basically, what the bill said was that the only major change was that if you are riding on a trail or sidewalk and you're coming up or nearing a pedestrian, that you have to reduce your speed to 10 miles an hour. You have to give an audible announcement, either through a bell, horn, or verbal, that you're approaching them. That was really the only thing on affecting e-bikes on that bill. The other thing was it put DOT and FHP, or there's a mandate for them to study crashes with e-bikes. There was nothing else on that bill. There was so many people that would get on and talk about that bill and say stuff that wasn't true, say stuff that it passed. I mean, it just blew my mind, the misinformation out there. But in terms of that specific bill, the governor vetoed it because he didn't think it was enforceable. And it put a big burden on law enforcement. And it's true. Unless you have a radar, how do you know how fast the bike is going, right? And no cop is going to stand on a sidewalk pointing a radar gun at an e-bike. The bill was just stupid. Although I personally wanted the bill, and here's why I wanted that bill. Because that bill had it become law, would supersede any bill out there, meaning that a local government, like a county or municipality, couldn't come up with their own stupid idea as to what type of bike regulation they wanted. It would have taken all that off the table. But right now, it's not off the table. So, if you're in the town of, or if you live in Boca Raton, for example, in Florida, that mayor or that commission could write any ordinance regulating e-bikes, and you're stuck with that, right? So I was a little disappointed that the governor didn't pass it, but I understood why he didn't. It was a stupid bill to begin with. But let me go through a couple of things about where I believe the future of e-bikes are going. And before we go there, there's one thing that you have to remember, and I always like to go back in time, right? I always like to go back and see where we have come from. It wasn't that long ago, literally a couple of years ago, in which a 750 watt motor or bike that had a 750 watt motor with a 20 amp hour battery was super impressive, right? It was, and again, it was only a few years ago that was the case. And I remember my first 52 volt bike that had a 750 watt motor that peaked at 1500 watts. I had a 20 amp hour battery, and I was ecstatic about that bike, right? That was only 2 years ago. Fast forward to today, we have 72 watt platforms today. We have bikes that have 80 to 100 amp hours from the manufacturer, right? And they're capable of going over 50 miles. And in terms of range, truly, for the first time, you can believe that they can go over 100 miles. You'll get these manufacturers. They'll say that the bike goes over 100 miles or 90, whatever the mileage they put on there. Cut that in half, because most of the time that's not true. One of the things I can, based on my personal experience and based on a lot of the testing that I have done, for the most part, if you ride your bike conservatively, and for me, conservatively meaning if you keep it between 20 and let's say 30 miles an hour, you should be able to get 1 mile for every amp hour, right? That is what I have discovered across the board. Now, with the 72 volt bikes, it's actually more than that. For example, my Mini Go, which is a 72 volt bike, and I have a total of 50, 25, 75 amp hours on that bike, I get a lot more, especially if I stay under 30 miles an hour. And again, because it has a 72 volt, it's a 72 volt system, the motor is just much more efficient. And because it's more efficient, you get more miles. So that's what I see. It's interesting. Which are illegal in my country, in my community. Okay, I didn't see what you wrote. What do you mean by illegal in your community? Explain what you mean. What's illegal in your community? I don't know what you're talking about. And I think that's just the beginning. The problem is, and I want to go back to regulation. The problem is that manufacturers now have the capacity of building these high performance e-bikes, right? That go just as fast as something that, for example, if we go to the scooter industry, it goes just as fast, if not faster, than a lot of, I would say 50 to 125 cc scooters. They're faster. And a scooter, you have to have a license. You have to be, it has to be registered. You have to have insurance. So I get it. I get where regulation comes into play. But there's this gray area there. Okay, he says over 1,000 watt motor. Yes, in most states right now, anything over 750 watts is not legal, right? But again, I'll go back to why the governor of Florida didn't sign the current bill, is because that 750 watt motor in the US, I'm not talking about in Europe, because Europe, they can do it. In the US right now, not enforceable. You have to have a dyno to determine the wattage of a bike. And here in the US, as of today, right, as of July, whatever, 2nd, whatever it is today, I would say 99.9% of the police departments don't have a dyno out on the street and to check. They do have it in Europe, though. I can tell you that. I've actually seen that being enforced, which I think it's crazy. But anyway, so going back to what I was referring to as the future of e-bikes, here are the 5 things or the 5 trends that I see in the next couple of years that are going to make the industry much better. And for me, the biggest and most important thing is the battery, right? We're going to see bigger, more efficient, lighter. I want to say bigger in amp hours, right? Lighter, more compact batteries. Solid state batteries are here already. There's a couple of companies that are producing these solid state batteries, which if you don't know what it is, basically I'll just make it really simple. You can pack a lot of power in a lighter, more compact version that's faster to charge, right? For example, my Anioki, I'm going to talk about my Anioki, because Anioki bikes for me, they're the king of range. On a 70 amp hour Anioki bike, whether it's the 48 volt or up to the 72 volt, it's going to take you from 0 to full about 6 to 8 hours to charge. We're seeing companies now, Enway being one of them, producing fast charging batteries with fast charging with high powered chargers that are reducing that dramatically. So that's one big improvement that we're going to start to see coming soon. That's going to make the industry much better, right? That's one. The battery. The next is the charger. I just mentioned that, right? Enway has a fast charging charger for their bike that charges in half the time that you normally get, right? Battery sizes, it's only part of that equation. You need charging technology to keep up with the actual technology of the bike, right? So imagine you can add another 50 miles of range while you stop to have lunch or a cup of coffee while you wait for this thing to charge quickly. That's where I see this industry going. Let me make sure this kid is not anything stupid. Okay. So I see that coming, and I see that coming here very, very shortly, right? The other thing is that we're going to start to see better safety with e-bikes, right? As e-bikes become faster, safety is going to be a concern. This is why I think we're starting to see a lot of issues with regulation. Here's what I see coming soon. ABS braking system. That is going to come very, very shortly. Suspension, right now, each year we're seeing bikes having full suspension, better suspension, but it's going to be standard to have scooter style suspension on e-bikes here in a very short future, right? Better lighting integration. It was just a year ago that very few bikes had turn signals. Fast forward to today, even budget e-bikes are coming out with turn signals. They're not very good yet. There's some companies that are producing great bikes with great turn signals, and Magician is one. Wired bikes, they're new wired bikes, the Raven, the Viper, the Predator, the Scout, all the new versions of their e-bikes have phenomenal turn signals front and back, right? Very visible. But we're going to see better integrated lighting in e-bikes. Now, the next one that we're going to start to see better, we're starting to see it now, and I've been preaching about this for years, is better tires, right? The tires on most e-bikes, those 90 tires that you see on most e-bikes, are not only a hazard, but they're so cheap that it blows my mind that you would see them on an e-bike. Even expensive e-bikes have been putting cheap tires on them. Not so now, right? I'm going to go back to Anioki. All their Anioki new bikes, have really good tires. Wired on their new e-bikes, really good tires. Magician, really good tires. There's a bunch of new companies now putting very good, or not, they're not great, but they're much better than what you've been currently seeing in the industry. Is tires, right? Okay, somebody wrote, yeah, Lewis writes, the battery most important thing. That's the most important thing to me too, is the battery. I'm gonna go periodically check those comments. So that's that. 4, and that's coming soon, and we already see it on a very select few bikes, is what I refer to as a smart bike, smart technology, right? You're starting to see it, guys. You're starting to see the following, right? Built-in GPS tracking. You're starting to see that on bikes. Theft recovery or anti-theft systems on bikes. You're starting to see that. Here's what you're going to see shortly as well. Ride diagnostics, right? The bike is going to be able to tell you what's wrong with it. Even though now you get these error codes that you have to look or email the company to see what the error code is, you're going to see bikes that will tell you exactly what that is. You're going to get bikes that will give you predictive maintenance alerts, or predictive, right? It'll tell you, hey, you need, the bike needs X, Y, and Z. You're going to get bikes with AI-powered ride statistics. You're going to see that, right? Because you already see it in apps. But this is going to come integrated into the actual bike themselves. The Autos X26 is one of those bikes that has a lot of the stuff already on the bike. Now, granted, it's part of the app that you connect to the bike, but you're going to start to see that integrated in the bike itself without the need of the app, which I think is phenomenal. Now, here's where I need your participation. This kid just busted his butt. Which brands out there do you think are leading the way in terms of innovation? I just gave you one. It's Autos. It's a brand new company. If you're not familiar with it, I featured it on my channel. That's one of the companies that's leading the way in innovation. But what other companies do you think are leading the way in innovation? Here's what it is. I don't really care about speed because I like to cruise on my city. I just need more watt power for hills. There's that Flux 26. That's the one I was referring to. Yeah, that bike is already leading the way in technology. You're going to get more bikes with similar technology. Segway is another company that has a lot of technology with their bikes. Aventon recently came out with some cool stuff for their bikes, but we're starting to see that. We're starting to see a lot of that. And I agree with Squeeze here to some extent, right? I live in South Florida. South Florida, we have regular county and city roads that are more like highways in some places, right? For example, I was talking to Wilson, William, aka Wilson Crancussel, and he was mentioning that in LA, majority of LA, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour. That's not the case in South Florida. The case in South Florida, even like some local roads, you're looking at 50, 55 miles an hour, definitely 45 miles an hour. And then the problem is nobody goes that slow, right? So I need my bike to go faster than 35 miles an hour. For me, that 35 mile an hour mark is important because if you're on a road that doesn't have a designated bike lane and you can't get on the sidewalk, going less than 20 miles an hour is dangerous, very dangerous. So 35 miles an hour is important for me. But I don't need the bike to go 50 miles an hour. In fact, I rarely go 50 miles an hour unless I'm cutting across a highway or I'm in a section of roadway where everybody's going 45 plus, and I'll just go just as fast to get out of the way and hop on, right? Mike the Bike Dasher, what's up, brother? He's on there on here. In fact, I'm going to mention some of the stuff that he posted on his channel recently with his new bike, his Anioki. But you're right. For me, is speed is not that important, but torque, my beautiful people, torque is definitely important, right? Because torque is what's going to get you up a hill. Torque is what's going to get you to cross a very busy intersection without getting run over. Torque is what's going to get you out of the way when a dog comes running after you, right? You need that 0 to 20 acceleration. That is extremely important. It's important to me, and you're seeing that, right? You're seeing bikes or companies understand that how important that is. Let me see. I don't feel like getting a license and registration and paying insurance. I want the right to be free and priest. Yeah. Here's the thing with that. And you're right. I'm with you. I don't want to have to register a bike, right? I don't want to have to get a license, and I don't want to have to get insurance for a license. But that's where I think that's the danger with e-bikes, because a lot of people are classifying e-bikes as a motor vehicle, and if it's a motor vehicle, you're gonna have to deal with that. If we compare it to scooters, though, and I hope I hope legislators use some common sense when it comes to legislation, right? A 50cc motorcycle, you don't need a motorcycle endorsement. You do need a motorcycle. I mean, you do need a driver's license, and that's going to be where I think a lot of legislators are going to eventually get to is if your bike is has the capacity to go, or your watts on your bike are greater than 750, and your bike goes faster than 28 miles an hour, I think they're going to require that bike to be registered. They're going to require the rider to have a license. And here's the unfortunate truth as well. The problem is not you and I. The problem is these kids and these parents who don't monitor these kids on these e-motos, because most of them, if not all of them, are not on an e-bike. They are on an e-moto, and they're flying down the streets, blowing stop signs, getting waffled by cars, doing wheelies, doing stupid shit that teenagers do, right? Or young people do. But I, as a parent, I would never buy, and I don't, my son's old, but I'll use my grandson as an example. I won't ever buy my grandson a e-moto to ride by himself on the street. If he gets an e-moto, he's going to be riding that e-moto on our private property where he's being supervised, right? I'm not going to let him go out with his friends to go ride around the neighborhood on a bike that can go 40, 50 miles an hour. Not doing that. Especially on a kid that doesn't have a driver's license, doesn't understand the rules of the road, right? It's bad enough they're getting waffled on a regular bike. Now you're going to give them a high-power e-bike. It's just common sense. And the problem is, not everyone has common sense, right? So that's huge. But going back to the future of e-bikes, because again, that's a hot topic. And going back to my final question, brands that are leading the way in terms of technology, in terms of the quality of the bike, etc., right? I'm going to give you a few companies that I believe are leading the way. Wired Bikes, Magician, Anioki, Ihora, Aventon. I'll throw in electric, even though electric is, the number one selling bikes out there are from that company. I don't think they're leading the way in technology, but I think Aventon is, Segway is, Anioki, the ones I mentioned, right? Even some newcomers to the game, like Autos, they're leading the way. They're leading the way for sure. All right, the last thing I want to talk about is, because I get this question all the time, and I said I was going to do this quarterly, but we're going to break it down a little bit. And this segment here is specifically for those that hustle on their bikes, right? What's the best delivery bike? And here's how I'm going to break this down. And I've had the opportunity to ride and review a lot of bikes, and I've been doing gig work for close to a year now. And here's how I'm going to phrase this. We're going to break this down into budget, best value, best speed, best range, best comfort, and maybe overall. Now, keeping in mind that there's so many companies, so many bikes out there, I can't touch them all, but I'm just going to give you the characteristics of what I believe will make a good delivery bike. Because a lot of people, and I see it out there a lot, and a lot of people that get into gig work and they want to do it with an e-bike, almost all of them, their first purchase is a mistake because they're looking at the wrong thing and buying the wrong thing, right? And they're trying to go super cheap. You can't, when you're buying a tool that's going to make you money, you can't go cheap, people. That's a huge mistake. Cannot go cheap. You have to, it's an investment. So invest in something that's going to have a high return, right? So the bike has to have the following. Number one, we kind of already touched on it by multiple people, is range. It's got to have range. I don't understand someone that buys an e-bike, right? That buys an e-bike to do gig work on, and the e-bike only has 15 amp hours. That blows my mind. Now, it blows my mind because, and I'm going to excuse those people that do that because they probably didn't do enough research and they're new to the game, right? I fully understand 15 hours is not going to get me anywhere. Even if you're in a place like New York City where you're not traveling a lot, it's just not enough amp hours. At best, with a 15 amp hour bike, if you're doing gig work with it, at best, you're going to get 20 miles. At best. That doesn't really, that might cover one shift, but it's not enough, right? So when it comes to amp hours, at a minimum, you need 30 amp hours, at a minimum. So find a bike that's going to give you 30 amp hours. And there's a lot of bikes out there that will give you that. There's a couple of ones that I really like that are, and I'll kind of mention them on here, is Ansky has a cargo bike that has, you get the dual battery version. It's 60 amp hours, but the single battery version is 20 amp hours, right? You have Magician, you have the wired bikes. Those will give you 30 amp hours. You have the GOAT bikes. You have the dual battery move cam, the F6, Tunnel Pantera, the T8. There's a lot of companies that'll give you those 30 amp hours. But that's at a minimum, and that's if you're in an area that it's everything compact, like Chicago, like New York. What's another city that's coming? San Francisco is kind of compact, right? Even in Miami, if you're going to only work downtown Miami, you can get away with that. But you can't get away with that in Fort Lauderdale, can't get away with that anywhere in Broward County. In most places, you just can't. It's not going to give you enough amp hours. So batteries, number one. If you're going to do gig work, your number two thing you need to look for is suspension. Don't get a fixed, what I call it, a fixed bike or fixed suspension bike. Hold on one second. What are you doing? Leave it alone. Come on. Be part of the show for a little bit. Say hi. Hi. Here. You can play. Here, play with this phone. Maybe this will entertain you for a little bit. So suspension. It's got to have good suspension. But also understand this. There's bikes that have good suspension, but if you're going to have a rack, right? Because a lot of guys like to put the bags on a rack. You know, I'll give you some examples. Wilser, Andy, Eddie Benitez, they actually affix their bags to the rear rack. You got to be careful with that because some bikes have suspension, but that rear rack is not part of. What's up, Turbo? That rear rack is not part of the suspension system. So, and you may get a bike that has really soft suspension. So anytime you hit a bump, that whole thing bounces up. So just be careful with that. And really understand if it's good suspension or bad suspension, but it's got to have suspension. So that's number 2. And then number 3, I touched on it already. It has to have torque. Don't get a Filoto Falcon. And for those Filoto Falcon lovers, the new version I hear is much better. I haven't tested the new version of the Filoto bikes. I've only had the 2025 version, and that slow start is dangerous. Don't recommend it for a gig worker at all. It's just too slow, right? So it's got to have those things. Now, those are the 3 things it's got to have. Now, depending on your budget, will depend on, you know, what kind of bike you're going to get. So, for example, if you have, if you have unlimited budget, then I would get a Magician Alpha, Magician Raven, Wired Raven and Wired Scout, either the Full Scout or the Viper, the minis, depending on your height. I would get something similar to that has torque, that has range. But I'm a big fan of 2 companies that I know a lot of people have had negative experiences with them, and that's Anioki and Ihora. And then now the new Walkie, the older Walkies will do the trick and the test weight, right? Those are long-range bikes that are, I think, tailor-made for gig workers. Again, I'm going to repeat those. The test weight, either the X5, X7, the Walkie, either the H7, H9, or the new, I forget the new one. Somebody tell me what the new one is. But it's the new one, the 5-inch fat tire bike that has a long-range battery. All the Aniokis and all of the, not all, but the Ihora Juliet and the Ihora Romeos are the ones that I would put my money, I would invest my money in if I'm going to use the bike for gig work. And then I'm going to give you an example, right? Dumoto, he won the Anioki during the Dash Challenge, the A8, which already came with a 70 amp hour battery, and he added another battery on top of that. That's how important range is. Now, he works in Houston, if I remember correctly, just to get to his work area, he has to ride 10 to 15 miles just to get to his work area. And now that Mike is on here, Mike is a great example of what I'm referring to, that you don't need speed, right? He just got an Anioki. He got the, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, you got the 8-volt version of the Anioki with the 70 amp hour battery, but it's all he needs, right? Phenomenal, especially for the entry point. I can't remember if he got the A8 or the AQ177, but the 48-volt version, either or the A8 or the AQ177, either or, those bikes, you can get them less. If you use my discount code, it's going to be less than $1,200, right? You got a phenomenal bike that's tailor made for delivery drivers. Doing gig work, those 2 bikes are tailor made for you. Now, like I said, if you want a little bit more range, a little bit more power, then go with the 52 volt, go with the 60 volt, or go with the 72 volt version of those bikes. Ihora, it's either the 52 or the 60 volt versions. But man, they got speed, they got torque, they got range, they got suspension, they got everything you need to be successful in gig work, to do some gig work. Make sure I covered everything there. I see in the comments, a lot of people agree with the Anioki. Now, here's the deal, because again, Anioki does not have a perfect record when it comes to their bikes. They produce a lot of bikes, and because they produce a lot of bikes, they're going to and they can't control how shipping companies deliver their bike, right? FedEx is horrible. I've demonstrated multiple times how beat up they deliver bikes to me. I've been very fortunate that I have not had any issues with any of the Anioki bikes because they're packaged really well. But there are people that have had serious problems with them, right? Scott Hardesty got, I think, 2 or 3 bikes that they sent him. All of them had issues. And some people in my comments have mentioned that they've received bikes that have issues. The good thing is that Anioki will do right by you. It's going to be a headache because you're going to have to email back and forth, get those parts put on. But at the end of the day, they'll get your bike up and running. And once it's up and running, you're going to have a bike for a long time. I've had, for example, my Ihoras and my Aniokis. I've had like I have one since 2024. The A8, the first A8, it still runs just as good as it ran when I got it, right? So same thing with Ihora. Ihora, I believe the 24 versions of their motors had lots of issues. They would burn out. In fact, Mike had an Ihora that his motor burned out a couple of times. And I know I'm liking the Anioki so far. The bike has been running well. Yes. I know Mike had issues with his Ihora Juliet. I believe he had the Juliet. And the motor burnt out. Ihora sent them a replacement. That burnt out. But since then, their new motors are much better, just like with Anioki. The difference between my 2024 Anioki and my new 2026 Anioki is night and day. It is a much quieter, much more powerful, much more efficient motor than what they had back then. Yeah, I had 2 motors burn out with my Ihora Juliet from that time. They were at least good for their customer service. Yes, that's the point, right? I'm going to give you an example of a bike that I have a headache with right now, and my issue has not been resolved. Is my 72-volt Jupiter X1 from Be Cool. That bike came all jacked up, all sorts of issues with that bike, and I still haven't had the issue resolved. But they're still working with me, meaning they're still trying to make it right. They're shipping out a new bike to me, which I should be getting that, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So we'll put that one together. We'll see if that one works out. But you want a bike that's going to be responsive, right? You want a company that's going to at least back their product, even though they may have some quality control issues. Here's what's funny. And I'm going to talk about Scott Hardesty because he had huge issues with Anioki, and rightfully so. Anioki did not do right by him by sending him those bikes. But he had, I think, an Aventant bike. Again, not every bike's perfect because he had an Aventant bike, a brand new bike that didn't work. He had to wait to get replacement parts. So as much crap that he talked about Anioki, and again, rightfully so, no bike is perfect. You're going to get even a reputable company like Aventant send you a crappy bike. It's just, hold on a second. Hey. Don't touch that. It's just the draw of the luck. Like I said, I've been very lucky with Anioki. Haven't had any issues. But again, it's probably just luck, even though I own every Anioki model available, from the 48 volt to the 72 volt, from the AQ177. So if it's a 20 by 4-inch fat tire Anioki, I own it. It's in my shop. And I have some new ones coming out that I'm super excited about, like super excited about their 60 volt AQ177 that is en route to me. And there's single motor, which I love. And there's 60-volt single motor A8 that's coming to me as well. Both with 80 amp hour batteries, which blew my mind when I found out that they were 80 amp hour batteries. Very impressive. All right. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to make this brief. But before I do that, I want to thank my sponsors, Dream Vacations and Rentals. If you guys are looking to come to South Florida to vacation, go to Dream Vacations and Rentals, book one of our properties. If you go to our website, you find a property and you message me, I will give you a 15% discount on any stay for any length. So that's Dream Vacations and Rentals. The next is Dream Media Team. If you are a content creator and you're doing everything yourself, you're making a huge mistake, you can hire us to, at the bare minimum, do your editing. If you are a content creator and you're the face of your content creation, you should not be editing your own videos. You can do better, and trust me when I tell you, you will grow faster because you can produce more and be a little bit more creative with your work when you don't have to sit down and edit your videos, because editing is the most time-consuming task you're going to have as a content creator. So that's the Dream Media Team. You can go to our website, dreammediateam.com, or dreammedia.com. The information will be in the description below. So those are our sponsor for the show. Boom, 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 boom. Turbo, what do you mean that's huge? Yeah, I had 2 motors. Yep. Veteran Dasher, thank you for being on. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about is I kind of touched on this last time, and that is hold on, Mateo, please give me 2 more seconds, buddy. Go play. It's the following. I interviewed Wilson, William, aka Wilson Crank Hustle, recently, and we kind of talked about how about people and gig work and why they do gig work. One of the things that I'm noticing is, and Turbo even mentioned this on somebody else's page, I can't remember, or channel, but I'll bring out a couple of people: Eddie, Turbo, Dumoto, Andy, William, aka Wilson, myself. We decided to do gig work mainly because we don't want to work for other people. We want freedom, right? We want the ability to go out there and make as much money as we want without restrictions. That's why we do that, right? Especially people like Wilson, Andy, and myself, that we treat this, even gig work, as a business, and you should be doing the same. I talked about on the last one was the study that Ramsey, the financial guy, did. And that study, if you didn't see that segment, I recommend you go look at it. I'm gonna touch on it again because I got a lot of questions about it. The 5 professions that produce the most millionaires. One of those 5 are teachers. And teachers, if you don't know, don't have a high salary. They're not making $150,000 a year in salary. Their average salary is between $50,000 and $75,000, depending on where you live. It's not a huge. Gig workers can make. Hold on a second. Oh, my beautiful grandson is going to drive me insane during this podcast. Let's just knock that out. Gig workers can make that kind of money, right? But teachers are in that list of the most millionaires because of one thing: patience, time. People become teachers because they like to teach, and they understand that they're not going to make a lot of money, and they're going to have to work for a long time. So they invest appropriately. Not only do they invest appropriately, but they know how to budget their money. I'm not going to go into all that on this one, but I just wanted to repeat the fact that if you're looking to be financially free, right? You need to understand the basic principles of money, investing, being smart with your money. Working and hustling is part of that. You have to generate that. You have to live below your means. You have to invest, and you need time. Building something like a lot of these guys I just mentioned are not only doing gig work, but they're building something. They're building their YouTube channels. They're building businesses. For example, William sells his kits, right? He created a business within this industry. Andy is doing the same thing. You're going to find out shortly what Andy's doing. He's building a business within this niche. I have built a business within this niche, right? You could. My 1-year anniversary is on July 15th, right, of this month. Only a few more days. I got a couple of goals. One is to hit 2,000 subscribers, which I believe I'm only like 25 subscribers away to get to that 2,000 mark. So help me out with that. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. But I'm going to, because I've been tracking it, on my podcast, which is going to be that Wednesday after July 15th, that first Wednesday after July 15th. I'm going to break down everything I did this year in terms of how I created my business, how much money I made, how much I invested. All that stuff is going to be broken down so you guys can see that it's not just about going out there and doing deliveries. It's about building something, right? All right, let me see what we got here. Turbo, before I go on, I'm watching from the beach. Freedom is key. Yes, yes, yes. That is hugely important, right? You know, doing what you want, when you want, and how you want is key. Let me see what else we got. July 15th is my sobriety date with what that? Oh, congratulations, July 15th. That's a big day because that's my anniversary for this channel. I love that day. So congratulations on that. All right, guys, that is going to be it for this. I got to take care of this little boy because he wants to play. He's a 9-month-old that's already walking and running and kicking stuff down. And I'm like, holy smokes. I can't imagine when he's 2. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Love you guys. Don't forget, ride, hustle, repeat. Oops. In November, 25 e-bike riders will attempt the most ambitious e-bike challenge ever organized in Florida. Over 450 miles in 3 days to crown one champion. 25 riders will leave Fort Lauderdale and ride across Florida over 450 miles. This is about proving what you and your bike are truly capable of. And yes, to make this interesting, there will be prize money and giveaways. First place, $1,000. Welcome to the first ever What Hustle Florida Cannonball Loop.